Welcome to the Awakened Parent Project, conscious conversations, empowered parenting with me, Susan Dolci. It's time to open our hearts and our minds to what it means to be a parent, exploring and expanding the ways we communicate, validate, and show up daily for our kids. With a parent-centric focus, you learn to become more present, a better active listener, more reflective, more engaged, and mutually empowered. Parenting isn't about perfection. It's about presence, honesty, self-compassion, unconditional love, and conscious communication. The Awakened Parent Project starts now. Hey everybody, welcome to the Awakened Parent Project. I'm your host, Susan Dolci. I'm a certified parent coach with the Jai Institute for Parenting, and it's my hope that you will find this a safe space to journey on a path of both practical and spiritual exploration. From the time my first daughter was born in 1994, I've been driven by a vision where children are nurtured both physically and spiritually by adults who are present, grounded, and empowered. I believe that conscious communication, self-exploration, and self-forgiveness are the tools that
This is my fault. Just let's start over.
Okay. I was like, should I keep going? I was like, oh, was that a mistake?
I was looking at the wrong screen. And
okay.
Yeah, and now it's all correct. So, okay, hold on. Boom. 3, 2, 1.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Awakened Parent Project. I'm your host, Susan Dolci. I'm a certified parent coach with the Jai Institute for Parenting, and it's my hope that you will find this a safe space to journey on a path of both practical and spiritual exploration. From the time my first daughter was born in 1994, I've been driven by a vision where children are nurtured both physically and spiritually by adults who are present, grounded, and empowered. I believe that conscious communication, self-exploration, and self-forgiveness are the tools that enable parents to foster deep, lasting connections with their children. Parenting isn't about perfection. It's about presence, honesty, self-compassion, unconditional love, and conscious communication. And today's topic was a definite hot button for me when my girls were little. So I'm super excited when I found my guest on Instagram validating my mama bear beliefs. Marcella DeRosa is a certified sleep specialist, doula, and mother of 4, and has worked with new families in the 4th trimester and beyond for the past 10 years. She's helped hundreds of new families as they adapt to their new life with a baby. Marcella draws from her own personal experience as a mother, in addition to her professional knowledge as a certified baby-led sleep and well-being specialist and certified doula. During her work as a postpartum doula, she noticed that way too many families had unrealistic expectations, which were inhibiting them from fully understanding their infant's needs and causing unnecessary stress and anxiety during what should be a joyous season. Marcella then decided to focus her work on normalizing normal biological infant needs, helping new parents to shift their perspective, set an environment more conducive to infant sleep, and to listen to their instincts by becoming empowered in their own unique experience. Welcome, Marcella. I'm so excited to have you here.
Thank you so much, Susan. Thanks for having me. I'm excited. I'm kind of nervous, but I'm excited.
Don't be nervous. It's just, we're just having a conversation. It's awesome. 2 mamas. I'm an older mama, and we're just having a conversation.
Yeah, no, totally.
So as I said, I found Marcella on Instagram and was fascinated by, because you talk about infant-led sleep. You have a whole different approach to infant sleep cycles. And I remember when my kids were little, I got criticized a lot for nursing too often, co-sleeping, picking them up in the middle of the night, not letting them cry themselves to sleep. And I just had to shut it down and just not listen to what everybody said and go with my instincts. So can you tell me, I know I've talked a little bit about it in your bio, but first, what brought you to this? Because I think I think what you're doing is underrepresented.
Yeah. So, I mean, if we go way back, my daughter's 14. She's my oldest. And unfortunately, I felt the pressure of needing to teach her to sleep, from, strangers on the street to my pediatrician, unfortunately. And so she was sleep trained and it tore me apart. And I did this, I went into it feeling like this is something I have to do, or I was doing something wrong if I didn't. So that's kind of where it started, in kind of me doing something, going against my instincts, and realizing afterwards none of that was necessary. And I caused, I don't like parents to blame themselves after the fact, of course, and doubt themselves and regret. But I do feel like there was a detachment in our relationship at that point, and that made me really sad in the future. And so I realized early on that I wasn't going to do that again with my children that I had after, and I had 3 more kids after that. And so then when I started working with parents in the postpartum, specifically as a doula, I realized it wasn't just me, it was everyone that feels like new parents feel like they have to do this, or they have no other options, and their instincts really don't matter. And that's unfortunate, because your instincts are everything. In parenting, I feel like if your gut tells you something doesn't feel right, it's just not, and it's not for you. And so when I started working with families as a doula, it was one family after the next. I was trying to encourage them to follow their instincts, but it was being shut down a lot by experts that they worked with, specifically pediatricians. And there's wonderful pediatricians. I don't like to speak badly about pediatricians, but they're not experts. Most of them, I can't speak for every pediatrician, but most of them are not experts on either sleep or lactation, for that matter. So it's really unfortunate that most parents get that advice.
Yeah, and that's the thing that I found, and I still find, like, I'm shocked that pediatricians are still giving that advice. I feel like, and you briefly mentioned it, attachment science, nervous system science, we know all of these things now. And we know that we can't pretend that sleep training is a good thing. And so I was like, yeah. So tell me about, so you're working with a family and they are struggling, baby won't sleep through the night. What do you tell them? Besides trust your instincts, like there's so many. One of the things I love about your social media is that you talk about a baby's sleep rhythms. And, I think all the sleep training is so that the parents can sleep, and we're not looking at what's best for the infant.
Mm-hmm. So your babies are going to get the most sleep when they feel safe and secure. And the way in which they do that is through an attachment relationship. As a culture, we emphasize independence so much for infants, even, our children, but it starts from infancy. And that, again, is really unfortunate, because human infants are the most helpless of beings, and they need us. They need to be in sensory proximity to a caregiver at all times. And that seems unrealistic to a lot of parents when I say that, but it's true. They need to be either within where they can see us, touch us, smell us. And that's where they feel safe and secure. So, and again, that is also recommended by the American Academy of Pediatrics to room share for at least 6 months, but ideally for 1 year, and for reasons to be prompt in responsiveness and to lower the risk of SIDS. So that emphasis on the independence, getting your baby into the nursery, getting your baby into the crib, you're causing, again, that separation where you're going to get less sleep unless you sleep train, which sleep training does not make anyone sleep, doesn't make your child sleep. It makes them realize that you're not coming, and then they stop signaling for you.
Exactly. And that's the thing that's so, like, there was no way. My husband and I tried, excuse me, we tried once with our oldest, and we thought, she'll get fussy for a little bit and then she'll be fine. And she was a very strong-willed child. I don't like to label, not strong-willed. She was a very determined child. She even, fun fact, I was going back to work for like a real quick contract thing, like a 6-week thing. And she was so determined. She would not take a bottle. All she wanted was mommy's boob. And so it was, I mean, they were actually spoon feeding her breast milk. My mother and my mother-in-law were spoon feeding her breast milk just to get her to eat. And she was like, it's mom or nothing. And so that job fell by the wayside. But, because I think that if we really do turn to our instincts, as you say all the time in your social media, that if I wouldn't want to cry myself to sleep, why would I want my kid to cry themselves to sleep?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And also, if we really think about where we're at right now, most parents talk about, being connected to their child and being emotionally responsive and not being like our parents were. I mean, I can only speak from personal experience. And my mom would tell me, like, when I asked her a question, it's because I said so,
Yeah.
And parents say,
I pray we're beyond that.
Yes,
Please, can we be beyond
absolutely. That? And I feel like we are, but when we talk about infants, for some reason, it's still encouraged and appropriate to shut down our infants' emotions. But I always ask people when they kind of they question me about the approach and the perspective. I always say, if your 6-year-old was asking you for a hug, you might say, can you just wait a minute and let mommy finish this? Maybe you'd say something like that, but you absolutely would not say no, right? So why are we then shutting down our 6-month-old when they're crying for us?
Exactly.
It just doesn't make sense.
And the thing that always cracks me up is when they imply that the child is manipulating us.
Right.
That this infant is manipulating us, and we're creating, and we're going to talk about that more, about creating bad habits, but which is ludicrous. This is an infant that is completely dependent on us for food and safety and security, and all they need to know is that they are safe.
Mm-hmm.
First greatest need. And so many people today still suffering from that unmet need of safety, as I roll my eyes. Yeah,
absolutely. 100%.
So about creating bad habits, which is not true. Support me in this, Marcella. Tell me why it's not true.
No, it is not true. Something's only a bad habit if it doesn't work for you, So when we talk about habits, I like to say patterns. You're not creating a bad habit. This is the pattern that you and your child have gotten into. There's nothing wrong with this pattern that you have. If you decide that at some point it doesn't work for you anymore, you can shift those patterns. Of course, that would be a parent-led change, and it would have to be when appropriate developmentally and age appropriate for your child, in terms of like expectations and how that would unfold. But nothing is a bad habit. For one family, the way bed sharing might be wonderful. And for the next family, that would be not a good pattern to instill in your child based on your lifestyle. So every family is different, and there is no bad habits. There's no crutch, like nursing to sleep is not a crutch, contrary to popular opinion.
Absolutely. We're gonna take a pause here, take a quick break. When we come back, I want to talk about co-sleeping, baby wearing, because I'm a huge proponent of having my infant next to my body until they want to get down and run around. Mm-hmm. They want to be by me. That's perfectly okay. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to take a quick break. You're listening to the Awakened Parent Project. We'll be right back. Hey, everybody. Welcome back. You're listening to the Awakened Parent Project. I'm Susan Dolci. Today, I am with infant-led sleep specialist, Marcella DeRosa. That's like a mouthful. Okay. But I love the feeling behind it, because it's infant. We're the child. We're going with what the child needs and wants, and not what we necessarily need and want. So before we get started in that, can you tell us where people can find you and find out more about what you do?
Absolutely. So you can find me on Instagram, of course. I'm very present there at bornwithlove.sleep, as well as my website is bornwithlovesleep.com. And yeah, they're kind of like the two easiest ways to find me.
And because I'm a snoop, no, because Marcella also offers a free mini e-course. If you go to her website and you give her some information, she can share that with you. And there's also a link on the show description for her website. So head on over to that and all you new mamas and learn about the importance of baby sleeping. So so with my oldest, I got a sling. And that was before I realized that not every sling is created equal. And I wasn't comfortable with the whole baby carrier thing because I'm a small, petite woman. And I was like, this is complicated. So it was was it with my second? It's been a long time. I got a sling that was for a petite woman. And my kids lived in the sling for and the beauty part about it was they would nap in it if they didn't feel well. If I was grocery shopping or doing dinner or doing the laundry even, they were always by me if they wanted to be by me, to the point where I had to have some massage.
Yeah.
Because I have large children. But I even had a workout tape with a sling thing. And so I feel like the whole attachment thing was really solidified, and knowing that they could always be on my hip, that they could always be, when they were infants, brand new babies, up against my heartbeat. There's so many ways to turn them around. So what's your view on that? I mean, I'm sure I know what you're going to say, but because the one time I made a comment, I'm like, I had my kids in the sling all the time. And one of your things, you're like, yeah, but not everybody likes to wear their baby. I'm like, oh, who doesn't like?
I know. Yeah. So I did a live with a baby wearing specialist for that reason, because I do get a lot of clients who say that they can't find anything that works good for them, or maybe their baby is not really interested in being worn, but also wants to be close. So there are sensitive babies that don't necessarily want to be confined in a wrap or a carrier of some kind. So there's that, unfortunately, but I think that baby wearing is excellent. Specifically because if we're talking about a 6-month-old or under, it's really rare that they're going to be comfortable napping independently on a separate space for more than 20 or 30 minutes. And that's a huge complaint for parents, is when we're talking about infants, specifically under 6 months, they're getting very short naps, which is very normal for some babies to chronically nap 20 to 30 minutes. But my first tip is usually, when the parent tells me that, is, are you transferring baby to a crib or a bassinet, or are you wearing them or bed sharing the nap? Because usually you're going to get a longer stretch of sleep if you are either baby wearing, holding your baby, which baby wearing is the easiest way to do that, right? And be able to be hands-free and do other things like a lot of parents want to do, or bed share the nap, and you'll get a longer stretch of sleep. So baby wearing is excellent. Finding what works for you, I think, is great. I always love the ring slings. I think they're beautiful. I never was able to actually utilize them because they just weren't comfortable for me. But I always thought they looked so beautiful.
Is that the kind that like totally wraps around?
Yes. And
Okay.
so, and then it tightens. There's a beautiful ring here, and all the fabric kind of drapes. They're beautiful. And I just never really got the hang of it. And they weren't very comfortable for me. My Moby wrap was part of my wardrobe, like part of what I put on every morning when I had a baby. And then they got bigger and I went to the Ergo. There's so many options now though. My youngest is 5, almost 6, he is now. And so I feel like already it's been so long and there's so many more things out there. But yeah, we went to the Ergo and the Tula, which, those things you can wear on your back for like a 3-year-old. And we did all of that. And it was just easier. And I know a lot of parents feel that way. And then there's a lot that often don't as well. So it is kind of a struggle there.
Yeah, the one I had was, this was, like I said, this was like 27 years ago. So there weren't a lot of options, but it was a ring sling, but now they even make them into like beautiful fabrics and colors and formal wear. And I remember, I sew. That's one of my hobbies. And
awesome.
I tried to make one out of like jersey knit fabric so I could take it to the pool. So I could have them in one kid and one. It's just, to me, that was the answer to all of my keeping my children happy. So another thing that I'm curious about is what is the push in the medical community? And maybe you don't have the answer, and maybe you do, about self-soothing. Because like my second daughter, like my first daughter, like nursed incessantly. And I was totally her pacifier, I was totally okay with that, except when she overate and vomited everything. But my second one was a thumb sucker. And I never really discouraged that either. I figured there's, could be a time she outgrew it, and she did. But there seems to be like this, I don't want to say controversy, but that the proper way, we have to find that there's a right way and a wrong way for a child to self-soothe.
So self-soothing is interesting because eventually a child will begin to soothe themselves if first they have a dependent relationship that they can rely on. So it does happen organically, and every child is different, but it's just so interesting because that isn't something that we can teach. And so that's where the struggle is. That has to happen organically. The independence, which is just like, along the same lines as self-soothing, putting oneself to sleep without support, comes from the sense of security of knowing, if I need mom, she's here. Like, she'll come in if I need her. So I don't have to signal every time a sleep cycle ends, and so there's not that fear there. It's more, that's when we're pushing for that, it's like a fear-based approach, and and behavioral based approach, and it's not healthy. I mean, I'm saying it's not healthy. That's my belief. And there's a lot of controversy and a lot of DMs I've gotten from people who, will speak to it being most healthiest for mothers in terms of mental health and all of that, for in terms of sleep training specifically, and encouraging baby to self-soothe. It's not encouragement. If we're letting our baby cry for any amount of time and not following our instincts, and if we're doing gentle sleep training, which is gentle is just another way of saying we're responding, but just at timed increments, that's not following your instincts either. That's following a method that someone else told us this is the way to do it, so we're not listening to our child, we're not listening to ourselves. So it's all in the same kind of approach, in my opinion. So getting back to the self-soothing portion, there's like so many different aspects. It's so like hard to like stay on one path there because it all kind of relates,
Yeah, right.
With the self-soothing, I think that when you said before, like a medical perspective, maybe I do think that pediatricians and medical professionals tell people to sleep train and that their baby needs to learn how to self-soothe because they realize that as a culture, we have so much pressure on parents early on, specifically mothers. Early on, mothers going back to work 6 weeks, 3 months, like that's not enough. That's not enough time. Infants are solely relying on a caregiver 24 hours a day at that point still. So they feel like they have no other options, in my opinion. but to tell people this is the only way to do it. Like your child needs to know how to just go to sleep. And it's not realistic from a standpoint of what normal infant behavior and infant sleep looks like. Other cultures around the world, they would never think to even put their infant in another space. One of those reasons being they don't have the advantage to do that like we do. So it's really frustrating because we are not meeting our children where they are. We are expecting them to just fit into our normal lives. Our lives need to change to be a parent though. And so.
And that's exactly it. I mean, parenting is exhausting. It is. It's a lot of work. It's exhausting. It's not, it's not like I just, birthed this baby and now, they're going to sleep in the beautiful crib and they're going to, it's not that fantasy that we might've had while we were carrying the baby for 9 months. It's exhausting. Yeah. And, we being me and my husband, we always just felt like, we brought them into this world. We have to do everything to meet their needs, if feed them, rock them, nurse them, and that it's not supposed to be easy on us. And I don't mean that like critically, but that was our perspective. And I think so many people, I know, like even, my relatives, I had relatives who were like, they didn't want to babysit because we didn't have like protocols in place that worked for them. It'd be like, you have to, like, we rock her to sleep. We, put her down, and then we pat her back for a while and we make sure that she's, calm, and we have to back out of the room and make sure we don't hit the creaky floorboard. And then if she cries again, we come back. And it's just, so I just remember feeling really outnumbered and still sticking to my instincts. So I would have hoped that by this point, pediatricians would have, said, hey, find Marcella and find other people like Marcella and have them help you with the sleep schedules and all that. So we're going to take one more quick break. When we come back, I do want to talk about basically what I just said, like who comes to you, like who are the people that you serve and like, where are they in their experience? We're going to take a quick break. You're listening to the Awakened Parent Project. We'll be right back. Hey, everybody, welcome back. This is the Awakened Parent Project. I am Susan Dolci. I'm a certified parent coach with the Jai Institute for Parenting. And today I am chatting with Marcella DeRosa, who is an infant-led sleep specialist and a doula. You specialize in postpartum doula, correct? Is that?
Yes, at this point, I don't do many births anymore. I do some, but not very many. I focus more so on the 4th trimester and beyond.
And what's fascinating to me is when I was pregnant in the Wayback Machine, I never heard the term the 4th trimester. So I love that because it really is. I mean, it's a whole new learning experience. You're getting acquainted with your baby. You're getting acquainted with attachment and bonding and caring. And I mean, I don't know. I can't imagine how you don't birth this baby into the world and fall immediately in love. But I know that some people struggle with that, and they have, maybe it was because they didn't have a solid attachment when they were little. But so with that in mind, like who do you serve? Who comes to you? What do you do for your clients?
So most of my clients do not want to sleep train, but they also are not on board with being hands-off and just following the flow of their baby. Maybe they want to make changes. And so that's why you may see in some of my posts where I talk about it's not all or nothing. You don't have to sleep train or do nothing at all. It's really important to get into a good rhythm, get very attuned to your baby and your baby's natural rhythm, understand sleepy cues, understand sleep science. And
what's that? Tell me about that. I'm interrupting you. Tell me about sleep science.
Yeah. So when we're talking about infant sleep science, we're talking about the circadian rhythm, how that works. Infant sleep cycles ranging from like 45 minutes to an hour or so. And then we're also trying to get very attuned to figure out their wake windows, depending on where they are. I do have like a guide on wake windows, but every baby is unique. So figuring out your own baby's unique wake windows all goes into that. And then also people come to me because they feel like they're doing something wrong, or they feel like something's wrong with their baby. And the vast majority of the time, that is not the case at all. When people have sleep challenges, the majority of sleep challenges are not about sleep at all. There's so many elements that go into how a baby sleeps or doesn't, so there's red flags to look out for. There's reflux or ties or things that they don't know much about, or maybe their baby's labeled as colicky because their pediatrician said so. And colicky is just a general term. Being colic is a general term. That just means there's an underlying medical issue here that we don't know what it is. And so your baby just cries and can't be consoled for no reason at all. But there's always a reason. And so I help people unfold that and refer out when those kind of things are happening. But there's so much that goes into it. And I do ask people to give me an intake form, which is about 3 days of their days and nights, their routines, when baby wakes, when they fell asleep, how did you respond to them? When did they feed? All of the things. And so oftentimes, more often than not, I see patterns of babies that are overtired, babies that are undertired. And so that's why it's really important to be very in tune to your baby, and staying close to your baby will help all of that happen organically. The feeding, the sleeping, you want that adequately to happen. Most parents, a lot of parents that contact me are fearful of their baby not getting enough sleep. And what can I do to make my baby sleep? Because he's only sleeping 8 hours in 24 hours. And when I ask them how they're getting their baby to sleep, they do want a lot of independent sleep. And that means that a perspective shift has to happen, because that's not realistic when we're talking about an infant.
Mm-hmm. Co-sleeping. So one of my best friends, huge fan of co-sleeping. I only really slept. I mean, I would take naps with them, but after like a morning feeding, then they would, sleep with me or whatever to get in like some extra hours for all of us. But I was always worried. Actually, my husband was really worried about, I'm going to roll over and crush the baby. And I think that's a validated fear to have, especially, when you're a new parent. But now I feel like there are ways that the baby industry has created options for parents now where they can still sort of have their own space, but still you're right there.
Yeah. So co-sleepers are amazing. They kind of push right up to the bed. And there's no actual divide. It's all the way pressed up to the bed. So you can have your baby even just feel your arm laying in their space, which is halfway separate than yours, but also very close. So it is a happy medium there. And I do love co-sleepers for that reason. I will say, when we're talking about, I know that you're using the term co-sleeping at this point. I think you're talking about bed sharing.
Bed
right?
sharing.
So
bed
yes.
Thank you.
So it's confusing. It's very confusing, because I used to say co-sleeping, and now the term co-sleeping now means room sharing in some capacity. So now we have to, yes. So now we have to say bed sharing in reference to sleeping in the same sleep space. But if you are a breastfeeding parent, it's pretty safe to bed share if you're following all safety precautions. A lot of people, I've been kind of had a lot of questions about this, where because it's not recommended to bed share if you're not breastfeeding, because your baby is going to be attracted to your breast at all times. So they're not going to stray very far from the breast. They're going to be right next to you at all times. Just because your smell, your touch, all of that, they're attracted to the breast because they're a breastfeeding baby. But if they're not, then there is a safety issue there. So I don't encourage people that bottle feed, formula feed specifically, to bed share. So that is unfortunate, because I do feel bad about when I say things like that, but for safety reasons, it makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, yes, thank you for fixing the terminology.
Oh no,
The co-sleeping thing didn't exist when my kids were little. Like it wasn't available. Like,
yeah.
We had a bassinet in our room, and I had, like I said, I had very big kids very quickly. They were all 20 pounds by the time they were 4 months.
Wow.
I have
oh my goodness.
I have like the best breast milk. So they outgrew that really quickly. And so, yeah, we did have to transfer, to the crib, smaller than I would want them to, but for safety reasons, because they would just it wasn't sturdy enough to hold them. But I think the options for parents now are just so much better than when, 27 years ago, when, I was just so excited to find a sling. So when it comes to, I'm still hung up on the doctor thing. When it comes to pediatricians recommending this still, let me backtrack. Let me go to another question that I feel is going to be charged, but I have to ask it anyway. And I can see where all of this gets very complicated if you have to go back to work and now your child's in daycare. And so you don't know what your child is doing during the day, what their sleep is like. And so I mean, I was really blessed. I was to be able to stay home. But do you find that's an issue? I mean, that parents come up against that and they have to go back to work, and now their kid isn't sleeping and they are looking for help.
Yeah. So I think that's why a lot of parents give in, I guess I'd say, to sleep training, because they don't feel like they have any other options. So that's really unfortunate, because they kind of, I am a strong believer, especially after having 4 children, that it all just works out. We just kind of roll with the punches and it all works out. We can't really plan things that we don't have control over, because we don't have control over our baby's sleep. We only have control over ourselves, to be quite honest. And that's kind of a struggle for a lot of people. We can just respond to them with love and respond to their needs, but we don't have control over really how much sleep they get. We can just provide them what they need, what we know that infants need, and it all should work out. So that's kind of a struggle in talking to parents. But with going back to work, I encourage people to really, really dig deep and figure out what's going to work for them, and look at different avenues of support, because there are daycares. I have some clients that have found daycares that will work with them, small daycares, that will let them know via text, like when their baby fell asleep, when they woke up. You can have a conversation about caregivers and the way they support them to sleep. So it is doable. Some people can hire a nanny, which is even better, because then your nanny can form an attachment with your baby, and that's ideal. And you can have some matchmaking there, which is really important with that transition, spending time with one caregiver as a family. And, that matchmaking is really helpful for, that caregiver then getting your baby to sleep through touch and through the senses, just like you would. So
Mhm.
all of that can happen. It just requires some work. It requires looking further than your local daycare, just like finding a supportive pediatrician requires looking further than the closest one to you. So when something's important to you, then you will take initiative to dig deeper. And so that kind of separates people in what's a priority, and that sounds a little insensitive, I know, but it is true. That's why people give into sleep training, because when they feel like, well, this is too hard, this is the easy route, but you're not thinking about what that easy route actually means for your child, for your relationship with your child, potentially. And I don't think that sleep training is the worst thing that a parent can do, especially when you don't know that you have other options. But I do think that it's important to become informed and do what you feel comfortable with. And if you don't feel comfortable with not responding to your child, it's not for you. And caregivers that don't respect those ideals and pediatricians that don't respect those ideals are also not for you.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. And I guess I always feel like I had a limited perspective just because I'm so passionate about this. Like I could not imagine letting my baby cry themselves to sleep. I could not imagine hearing my baby wake up in the middle of the night and not go in and find out what's going on and what they need. But every parent comes to it with a different set of experiences, and what parenting means to them. And so I do have to honor that, even though my opinion is very different. So when we come back, I want to talk about how we do make changes then, like especially as they get older. And let's say there's bed sharing or even co-sleeping, or like for me, it was, we would tuck in when our oldest was old enough to be in a bed. We would tuck her in. We had a song I had to sing. And then, I would lay there with her because she was a hard one to go to sleep until she fell asleep. And anyway, we're going to talk more about that. We're going to take one final break. You're listening to the Awakened Parent Project, and we'll be right back. Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Awakened Parent Project. I'm Susan Dolci. Today, I am chatting with baby-led sleep specialist and doula Marcella DeRosa. And for me, this has been I have been so excited to have her on the show because I feel like, actually, I'm sure you're aware of people in the community who do this, but I was like, this is a thing. I was like so happy because I feel like so many parents, they're reading the books and they're going to the pediatricians and they are looking for answers, and they're also maybe getting feedback from, relatives and friends, and so much advice when you have a new baby. So much advice, so much unwanted advice.
Yeah.
So I'm just so grateful that you do this work. Your website again is Born with Love Sleep. bornwithlovesleep.com.
Yep.
And you also have some classes that people can sign up for besides your free e-course.
Yeah, so I have done some webinars, and I try to do a webinar every month of just different topics, from moving baby into a separate sleep space, ways to encourage that, night weaning, things like just topics that come up for parents. I'd like to have a webinar here and there about.
Well, I think your work is very, very, very much needed. So before the break, I was talking about how we were talking about transitioning. So now your child's not an infant anymore. If you've been bed sharing or room sharing, now that I've got all the terminology, how do we, gently go to the next space, the next level of sleeping for our child?
So definitely you want to have laid a foundation of a secure, dependent relationship with your child, because otherwise your child's not going to trust that you're going to be there when they need you. You want to be very gentle with any new parent-led change that you're implementing. And you also want it to be very gradual. So if we're talking about transferring from bed sharing to separate sleep space, depending on your child's age and development and what you've already been doing, sometimes that involves, if we're talking about a toddler, a floor bed next to your bed to start, to ease that transition. I think floor beds I recommend that for babies 8 months old and beyond. If they've never slept in a crib, let's just start with a floor bed. And that can be an easy transition because you're still there. You can lay on that space with your child. You can move away and it can be an easier transition. They can, play on it. They can, it can be a positive transition to a separate space and fun too. And then, if we're talking about a baby still, and it is important to you to transition to a nursery, crib, all of that, then the first step would be making this a positive space. Again, it's not that babies don't like their crib, because I hear that line all of the time. My baby hates the crib. Your baby doesn't hate the crib. Your baby hates the separation from you. So we need to kind of close the gap there, and ways in which to do that is first playing with your baby in that space, with the lights on, with the lights off, playing peekaboo outside of the room, making it a positive environment. Sleep trainers would often recommend the crib is only for sleep alone, and we don't go in the crib unless we're sleeping. I would argue that if the space does not feel safe to a child, you're not going to get any positive feedback. They're not going to feel good in it. But again, we're not letting a baby become stressed in the crib from my approach, from my perspective when I work with people. So, I'm not just going to tell you to let your baby cry and walk out of the room. But so back to getting your baby to love their new environment and with you. So you're right there with them in this space during the day with the lights on, you can even, I recommend some parents to, depending on, if you guys were bed sharing, that's going to be a big transition, putting a mattress on the floor next to the crib and putting your hand in the crib overnight. And yeah, no, me too.
Been there, done that.
Yeah. And so you have to kind of bridge that gap there before your baby will feel safe enough for you to walk out of the room. And when we're talking about toddlers, if you've been bed sharing for 2 years and now you want to transition to their own room, their own sleep space, then that's going to be very gradual. A win, I call anything a win. So if your baby was to fall asleep in their crib for 15 minutes and wake needing you, that's a win. You're not going to get a 12-hour overnight in the crib the first week that you're trying to get your baby to fall asleep in a crib. It's just unrealistic. So also having realistic expectations when you start that process, if it's important to you, and really distinguishing what's important to you. Because I'll work with families, and when I kind of give them strategies, I remind them that this may mean that you're going to be up in the middle of the night for a few hours, not a few minutes just nursing your baby back to sleep. It could potentially be that you're up for 2 hours, encouraging this new pattern and instilling a new pattern of support instead of nursing back to sleep in your bed. You have to, and some families will feel like that's too hard. I don't really want to be awake, and that's totally fine. You're not ready, and maybe you will never be. Maybe your 5-year-old will eventually just want to go sleep in their own bed like mine did, and it was fine.
It's like,
yeah, totally. So you have to kind of, I often bring to the forefront, make parents realize, maybe this isn't a priority, because this is going to be a lot of work. If I don't want to let my baby cry themselves to sleep, which I don't recommend, then it's just too much work for me to be responding to my baby in a different way and encouraging, this new pattern of responsiveness in a different space. It does get easier. I mean, that's not going to last forever. It's not going to be a month for 2 hours in the middle of the night for, weeks to come, but it could be a couple weeks for sure. Until your baby, then you've shifted a pattern, and that's a parent-led change. You've set a boundary, and that's totally okay to do. But we're responding to the emotion. And that's the big piece with the baby-led sleep approach, is that we're responding to the emotion. And when developmentally appropriate, which I don't recommend people doing things like taking out night feeds for, say, a 4-month-old, because I don't know where your baby's at in terms of development. I want to trust you as the parent that if your baby needs nutritive nursing sessions overnight. But if you want to take out a night feed, my comfort level is I'm not comfortable helping you do that much before 8 months old. At that point, I think most babies will give a 4 to 6 hour stretch at bedtime, and I can help you take out a non-nutritive feed if you'd like at that point. But if it's, you have to understand like what's realistic too. When people tell me, well, my friend's baby who's 3 months old sleeps 7 to 7. Well, either
Really?
they have a really easygoing baby, and they are out there. Believe me, I've gets lots of DMs of people that are disputing everything I say. So I believe that they're out there.
I will always support you, Marcella. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, well, thank you. I appreciate that. And, either they are very easygoing, which I know that there are some easygoing babies out there, but the reason why I put the information out there that I do, because most babies are not that easygoing. Most babies are going to need a lot more support than that, or some degree of support. They're not just going to go to sleep and wake up at 7 a.m. for the day. That's just not realistic. So kind of shifting perspectives is really important. Again, with your questions, I navigate through so many things. I'm sorry, Susan.
No, it's great. You're bring it on.
So yeah, where are we going from there?
Because we're coming up at the end here.
Yeah, totally.
So I guess the main thing, final thoughts, and just that it's a process.
Mm-hmm.
It's a process. And if there's anything I try to do with this podcast is to have parents trust their instincts, trust their intentions as a parent, and follow what feels right in their gut and in their heart, and not to be swayed by, in-laws, outlaws, friends, family, because you are the best parent for your child. And all of you people out, you are the best parent for your child. And you need to advocate for what you believe to be true, and not what some could very definitely be an expert, pediatrician, whatever. But I really feel that if I can say anything about this, it's just please advocate for yourself and your parenting style.
Definitely.
So one more time, where can people find you?
So my Instagram is at bornwithlove.sleep, as well as my website is bornwithlovesleep.com. And you can set up a 15-minute consult just to see about the approach if you like as well.
And she is a TikTok queen. So
yes,
you make me laugh so much with your TikTok. So good, and not just great information, great entertainment too. So thank you so much for being here with me today. I was really looking forward to this. Remember, there's no such thing as a perfect parent. Conscious parenting, in my opinion, is about allowing your children to be your awakening. Thanks for listening, everyone, and we'll see you next time. Thank you for being a part of the Awakened Parent Project. My goal with this show is to help us all become more compassionate and engaged parents by diving into the many techniques and ideologies of the conscious parenting community. This is a safe space to embark on a practical and spiritual journey of self-exploration and expand our ideas about conscious parenting. Got thoughts, questions, ideas? I want to hear from you. Reach out to me if there's a topic you'd like to hear covered on the show, or to share your conscious parenting story by visiting susandolci.com.